This is a journey.
Let me take you on a journey.
There will still be
The journey.
New sheriff in town, and his name is
The Journey.
Journey.
This thing is bigger than Nino Brown. This is The Journey.
The journey.
What is it that moved you?
The Journey. The Journey. The Journey. The Journey.
Welcome back, and this is The Journey. I'm your host, Larry Robertson, and today we will not let you down with this gentleman that you're going to talk and hear from today. Today we have Mr. Howard Robertson, born and raised Memphis, Tennessee. Also, this brother runs 3 companies. He has Trust Marketing, Spot Set, Radio Networks, as well as Old Audio. So without further ado, we have Mr. Howard Robertson. What's up, Howard?
What's up, Larry? You put Mr. on there. I'm impressed. You showing out you showing out for company, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So we always start out with a sort of like a getting to know you, where we get the Cliff Notes answers. So first off the top, where were your early years spent, and what do you remember about that community?
My early years were spent right here in Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
And, man, it's a phenomenal community. Back then, when I was growing up, black folk lived in the same parts of town. We all played together, haves and have-nots, and we all went to school together, and we were all raised together. We all ate at each other's house, and everybody's mama or daddy had free reign to tighten us up when necessary.
What you mean tighten us up?
Tighten us up.
What does that mean?
You know what that is? It's not time out.
It's not time out?
No, it ain't time out. Spanking, whooping, beating your
so everybody
tail.
in the neighborhood had free reign if you was getting out of line?
If you were, yes. And then you would get it again when you got home and your parents found out about it. Yes.
Wow.
Not like that today, of course.
Absolutely.
Right. But it was a fantastic community. I growing up in Memphis then, let me tell you
Wait a minute, hold on now. This is the Cliff Notes version. So outside of, in that community.
Okay.
Outside of your parents.
Okay.
Who had the biggest impact on Howard?
My grandparents.
Okay.
My grandparents. My family was very, very close, and my grandparents on both sides had major effects on me, impacts and effects on me. My grandfather, from a musical perspective, my grandfather was a classically trained organist. And he played organ and piano like nobody's business.
Is that where your love for music came from?
Yes,
Okay.
From him and my mom and whatnot. And then on my daddy's side, it was Nana, Annie Mae Johnson, who lived in North Memphis and Klondike, and who basically raised me.
Okay, well, hold up right there. All right, we're going to unpack that in segment 2. Okay, but what decision did you make as a young person that turned out to be a life-altering decision in hindsight?
The decision that I made as a young person that became life-altering. I'll tell you one that I just noticed. When I learned how to study, when I learned how to own information, and I'm glad young people are watching this, because once you learn that, it will completely rock your world and turn everything around. Once you learn whatever you need to do to be able, and when I say own information, I simply mean retain information, keep information, and be able to understand it so well that you could literally teach it.
What was the moment that you remember that you began to own that ability? Was there a specific moment?
I had a history teacher in high school who was who basically, we was an older guy.
Okay.
And dressed to the nines every day, tie and beautiful tie and suit and double-breasted suit and carnation and all of that.
Okay.
And he was a lecturer. And in high school, most of the teachers were the same, and they didn't lecture. Well, I learned American history from him, and he told stories.
What was his name?
His name was Turner, Mr. Turner.
Okay, so we're gonna put a pin on Turner, and we're gonna come back to him. Okay, so next, how different are you from the person you dreamed you would be as a child?
Well, I thought that I was gonna have a career creating music.
Okay.
And so I have a career creating. I've made a career out of creating, but not what I thought it would be, not music.
Right.
I was in band since I was 12 years old, and in Memphis, Tennessee back then, going into music wasn't the farthest thing away because so many people did.
Yeah.
And so I'm different in that I still get to create, but it's not music as much.
We'll get to unpack some of that too. Okay, so when did you know you were going to be okay? Or when did you know you were going to be a success? Was there a moment that you said, I got this?
Yeah, I think my first few people that I have ever known got their dream job right out of college.
Okay.
Their first job was not their dream job.
Right.
My first job was my dream job. When I was working.
And that signaled to you what?
That signaled to me that I was going to be okay. This was going to be okay. Right. I always wanted a job where I got to use my imagination and create and write and all of that. And I always loved music. So becoming a publicist at Stax Records right out of college, I was supposed to go to law school. Right. Everybody thought I was going to law school. I had gotten accepted to law school, but I chose not to. Okay. So that was right out of the box. That let me know I was going to be all right because I was exposed to so many very, very cool and successful people.
Okay. So what's your why? Why do you get up every day and make it happen?
To continue to live the dream. I'm living the dream.
Okay.
I dreamed of doing what I do. Okay. I dreamed of being able, all my life I decided that I wanted to be able to make a living doing something I loved using my imagination. And I get to do that every day, so why not get up? Right. It beats the stew out of just laying in the bed or being dead.
Well, that makes a good point because a lot of people sometimes don't want to get up. And a lot of that
Absolutely.
Is due to not feeling like they got a chance and the racial issues. Can you tell us of the time or a time that you remember that you realized you were black?
Oh, easily.
Okay.
Easily. I was about 4, and there used to be a department store in downtown Memphis called Breeze, BRY''S.
Okay.
And my mother and I were in Breeze shopping. She was shopping and whatnot, and I wanted some water. And so I went and saw a water fountain, and it was a water fountain for kids because they had little steps.
Okay. And
I climbed up the steps, and I started drinking water. And I heard this woman go, "No, no, no." And this was a white woman. And she picked me up and took me off of the steps and put me down. And she was saying, "You go over there." And one major mistake. There was a woman named Mary Elizabeth Robertson that had walked over and saw her. And I'm standing there, and the lady is standing there. We both standing there frozen looking at my mama, and my mama never looked at her. She looked at me. And she said, get back up there, drink some more water. And, I knew it was going to be some trouble. So I said, no, I'm it's like, I'm good. No, I'm okay. She said, drink some more water. And she made me get back up the steps and drink some more water out of the water fountain. The woman went and called what was then security, and there were some policemen standing right outside the door, and they put us out of the store. They escorted us.
So there was a black and white water fountain, I presume.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And I was drinking white water.
White water.
When I wasn't supposed to be.
Well, listen, this is the end of segment 1. We got to know a little bit about Mr. Robertson and how dynamic his life has been. But look, when we come back, we're going to unpack some of these stories and really dig in and find out what makes Mr. Robinson a true Memphis icon. Right after these messages, you're listening to The Journey on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
The Journey.
Jazz, America's own original musical art form. When did it start? Who were and are some of the major players? How do you distinguish what kind of jazz you're listening to? We talk about the great and lesser-known artists, songs and tunes, the instruments, and the social impact jazz has had on world culture since its beginning at the start of the 20th century.
Riffin' on jazz on the KUDZUKIAN Network. KUDZUKIAN!
Welcome back to The Journey. If you've been listening, you know we're talking to a dynamic individual in Mr. Howard Robertson of Trust Marketing, Ode Audio, and Spot Set Networks. So we're going to jump right back in, and we're going to unpack some of these stories that you were sharing with us, Howard. So tell us about your early childhood. I know you were brought up in Memphis, raised by grandparents, but give us a little color and context to your childhood.
Okay, my childhood in Memphis was tremendous. Came up. I was born in 1952. Okay, so I came up very, very much during the Jim Crow era. Right. I went to all black schools. Mm-hmm. I was never in the classroom with a white person, either as a teacher or as a classmate, until I was in the 10th grade. But back then, schools were strictly segregated. Okay. And going to an all-black school was phenomenal.
Okay. And what school was that?
Well, I started out in the first grade at Lincoln Elementary School. I went to Magnolia Elementary, which we call Magnolia University, actually. And then I went to Corey Junior High School. Okay. And then I went to Catholic High School for boys.
Okay. Who was at home with you at your house?
Both my parents worked.
Okay.
My mother was a teacher. My daddy was a postman.
Okay.
And so there was, growing up, I went to, my grandma. I stayed over my grandmother's house before I started school. And when I say I stayed over there, I stayed over there. They would take me over there on Sunday. And I stayed all week over there so they wouldn't have to transport me back and forth during the week. I was raised by Annie Mae Johnson and John R. Johnson and a lady named Maddie Robinson and her husband, Regis Robinson.
Regis Robinson.
Yes.
So, fondest memory. What's an amazing memory as a child?
My fondest memories were times that I spent hanging out with my daddy. Okay. We used to go to football games on Friday nights and whatnot. We used to go to the barbershop on Saturday mornings.
What made those times special?
Well, cause it was Big Howard and Little Howard.
Okay.
Cause it was, I adored my daddy, and other folks did too. My daddy was the kind of cat that a lot of people like. You meet somebody and you just something about him you liked.
Right.
that was him. And he cut up with people, and I really enjoyed, opportunity to be with him. So I think some of my fondest memories would be some time spent with him.
What was a terrible memory as a
child? A terrible memory you know what? That's hard.
Okay.
I don't. There were not. A terrible memory would
well, not necessarily a bad memory, a not so fond.
Well, not fond memory probably would have to do with death.
Okay.
It would probably have to do with death. It would probably have to do with the death of my grandfather, the one I told you that played organ and played piano.
Right.
That's the first real death that I remember, and he died when I was like 5 years old. Mm-hmm. My grandmother, his wife, died when I was in college, mm-hmm. and I literally found her.
Oh,
and that was a bad memory. But I didn't have a lot of bad memories as a child.
Okay. How was the transition from, say, childhood to high school? What was that like? Do you remember?
I do. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool because in my situation, like I said, I went to all black schools from first grade through ninth grade.
Uh-huh.
When I went to the 10th grade, apparently somebody in my household, my mom and my dad, thought that I needed some catechism and white people in my life at the time. So they sent me to a boys' Catholic high school.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, I'd never been in high school. I had never been in a classroom with a white person. So now I'm inundated with them. And so that transition for me and for the other 9 brothers
okay.
that were there, and we were brothers in every sense of the word,
mm-hmm.
And we felt like we had to represent
right
for black folk.
Okay.
We wasn't going to let God's other children beat us at nothing.
Okay.
All right. We felt like we had to represent for the race. And so we were highly, highly competitive. We were competitive in the classroom. Of course, we were competitive in sports.
Right.
Basketball courts, football field, track, whatever.
What was a time that kind of punctuated that transition to going to the all-white Catholic school from being in a majority black environment?
Had to be on April 5th, 1968.
Okay.
That was the day after Dr. King was killed.
Oh, wow.
And we went to school.
Okay.
And we were in school. We were in a class. And every class we went to, they didn't want to have class. They wanted to just have this, let's talk about it, because
right.
the city was in such turmoil.
Right.
There was so much tension. There was so many problems. And so every teacher you had wanted to talk about it. Well,
right.
the black folk in school wasn't up for a whole lot of conversation.
Right.
We didn't have a whole lot to say because we were still traumatized by what had happened. And I had a guy who I played basketball with. He was on the basketball team with me, and he raised his hand and he stood up and he said exactly what I know his daddy had said the night before at the dinner table.
Okay.
And it went something like this: I'm not sorry he's dead. He got what he deserved. He came here looking for trouble, and that's what he found. And, I'm not sorry about it. And, I was like a German shepherd that had just heard a dog whistle. I couldn't believe. I'm looking like, what did he say? Did he?
Right.
And my the only other black guy in the room, my partner, Steve Washington, who also played basketball with both of us,
Right.
he got his books, started getting up. I said, that's what we're going to do. We're going to walk out. And we walked past the teacher toward the door, but Steve made a right turn and went down the aisle that this guy was sitting
Right.
in. And this guy had no street sense or anything. You know, if you just said what you said,
Right.
and you sitting there and a brother is walking towards you,
Right.
you need to get up, cover up, or some kind of up.
Right.
And he just sat there, and Steve hit him and knocked him out of the seat and all of that. Stepped over him, and we both went to the office because, didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what was going to happen next.
Right.
So I think that incident let me know that I was a stranger in a strange land.
Wow. So look, going to college, that transition, going from a all-white school, going to an HBCU, what was that transition like?
Oh, that was phenomenal. I was ready for that.
Okay.
I was ready for that. So many back then, black students in Memphis coming out of black schools, I don't care if it was Melrose, Hamilton, Booker Washington, Carver, wherever, had Manassas, had options.
Right.
So good students had options to go to big white schools back then.
Right.
They wasn't letting a whole lot of us in, but a lot of folks from Memphis had a lot of opportunities. So I had opportunities to go, but I definitely wanted to go to an HBCU. And I was impressed with Lincoln University because I was impressed with some of the alumni.
Okay.
Like Langston Hughes, like Thurgood Marshall, like Kwame Nkrumah, first elected president of Ghana, like a lot of people. And I had never heard of Lincoln, and it was 1,000 miles away from home.
Okay.
And that's where I decided to go.
Okay.
And I decided to go based on the history. I grew up in the oldest black church in Memphis, the first black church in Memphis. So this sense of history has always been a big part of my life. My grandparents met at Lemoyne College. It was at Lemoyne Normal School. It was a high school. My grandparents met at Lemoyne when it was a high school. My parents met at Lemoyne College. So, black institutions go way, way back in my family.
Give us a kind of cliff notes of your career track.
Career track came out of college in 1973. First, I knocked around with some part-time jobs and whatnot while I was looking for a job.
Right.
And first job offers I got were two. Both were to become publicists or writers, copywriter in one case. And one was in 1973, the year they were founded, an offer to go to work for FedEx.
Right.
And the other was an offer to go to work for Stax. Nobody knew what FedEx was. FedEx was not an overnight success.
Right.
And so that was a no-brainer. Everybody knew what Stax was, and I love music anyway, and to get to work with the entertainers and all of that. So that was an easy decision to make back then. So left, stayed at Stax until right before they closed.
Okay.
And I left and I went to this company called Data Communications Corporation, which was a broadcast computer company working in television and radio stations all over the country and Canada.
So you did technology early, huh?
And so did that. Heard that Art Gilliam called me, and he was putting together the package to buy WLOK Radio, and I became a part of that effort. He was the first WLOK became the first black-owned station actually in this part of the country.
Wow.
And went to work for WLOK Radio, left WLOK about 5 years later, went to work at WPTY. At that time, it was PTY, and it became the Fox affiliate, one of the first Fox affiliates in the country. I went to television, and then I was there for 9 years. And my wife and I took a vacation walking on the beach, and the idea for my business today came from that walk on the beach, and that was called Trust Marketing.
Wow. Give us a great success in this, all that whole career arc that you just described. Anything that stands out as a huge success that just punctuates your career?
Well, I think a huge success for me came before the career. I think a huge success for me was that day that the Lord gave me whatever words and conversation that he put in my mouth that day, of which I do not remember what I said, but whatever it was that I said to cause this pretty fine girl that I had just met to pay some attention to me and later became my wife. That was the biggest success for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever Mac it was that I got that day,
right?
I'm thankful for, and that was major success. No, but seriously, and I would tell everybody this: it is infinitely better to go through this world and this life as a unit as opposed to solo. Okay? So find you a mate. You are infinitely better together than apart.
All right. Any big regrets during that same time?
Big regrets? Not. I don't have any big regrets. There are some things looking back on it that I would have done differently, but I don't regret what I did and the choice I made or the outcome, because it helped me learn. I don't know. I think if I had it to do over again, I would have been confident sooner.
Okay.
I would have been more confident sooner.
All right. Well, that's a good segue. If you were talking to that young kid back there, sitting there at the kitchen table, eating a bowl of cereal, what would you tell him?
Sitting there at the table, eating a bowl of cereal, I'd tell him that dreams absolutely come true. Okay. I would tell him that, you know what, dream it. I always was motivated by the Robert Kennedy quote, "Some men see things that are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not." And so I think I would tell the young Howard, "Hey man, you need to have some confidence. It's gonna be fine. You got this.
Right.
You got this. So claim it and start acting like you got it.
Okay.
And don't be tentative and looking around wondering what's gonna happen. Nah, you got it. You prayed for it. All right. You pray for it, and if he and if who you prayed to lets you know in his own way that this is gonna be all right, then claim it. Just claim it. Start claiming it then. Start acting like it then."
Well, that's a wonderful segue as well. We've come to the end of this amazing interview, but if you had something to leave the young kids, the young men that are watching or listening to you right now, what would you say to them?
What I would say to them is this. It's important that you realize some things, okay? First thing is that you come from a long legacy and lineage of survivors. I went to Ghana, West Africa, earlier this year in March, and there's a plaque on a wall of a slave castle that describes us, African Americans, as the children of those who refuse to die. That's because out of over 60 million Africans who were captured into bondage, only 12 million, about 12 million out of this over 60 million survived the experience. So if you are a young person now, know that there's been a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears and anxiety and death so that you might live. But your people made it. Okay, so you're a survivor. So understand that you are here for a reason. Understand also that you owe them for what they went through to make sure you could be born. You owe them. Okay? So failure is not an option. Also, know that you got to understand and learn how to live successfully in this life, how to thrive. We talked about survive. You know, you're a survivor, so you've survived, but how do you thrive? And the way you thrive is by dreaming. The way you thrive is by planning. The way you thrive is by executing, working your plan, living your dream.
There's nothing else that could or should be said after that statement. Mr. Howard Robertson, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larry Robinson,
for joining us on the journey. Listen, I'm your host, Larry Robinson, and you've just witnessed another outstanding journey. Come back. We're going to keep bringing them to you. Come back right here. Same bat channel, same bat time. And we're going to do it again. Till the next time, this is Larry Robinson on The Journey on the KUDZUKIAN Network. Take care.
The Journey hosted by Larry Robinson. Executive producer, The Delta Boulay.